Today we're going to look at, are you an intelligent fool? Are you an intelligent fool? That is the question. No? Who here considers themselves to be an intelligent fool? If you're an intelligent fool, please raise your hand. Are you an intelligent fool? Anybody here? No? Intelligent or fool? Both? Okay. So, what is an intelligent fool? Is maybe a better question to ask. We get a clue in the statement here. Fundamentally, to be an intelligent fool is to know more and more about less and less. No? And we see, especially what's happening today in this modern age, or this Kali Yuga, this iron age of quarrel and hypocrisy. What is happening today is that our education is getting in the way of our learning. Our education is getting in the way of our learning. Right? Does that make sense? Yes? And so we'll look at that, how we've developed quite elaborate and systematic educational systems, but it's not leading to a revolution of consciousness. It's not leading to a purification of mind. It's not leading to culture and character, generally. No? And so in order to understand this, are you an intelligent fool? And so I'll ask the question again at the end of the class, and maybe we'll have a different response to the question. In order to understand this, are you an intelligent fool, we'll start today's class with a story. Right? It's a story set in medieval times, some 500 or so years ago. And it's a true story. It is actually a history. I shouldn't call it a story, it's history, right? And it revolves around Jerusalem. So in June of 1099, Jerusalem was under siege, right? So everybody knows Jerusalem, right? It's the holy place of Christians, Jews, and Muslims, no? The Abrahamic faith, right? All coming from one source, fundamentally. And so in June of 1099, Jerusalem was under siege. Right? Means that the Crusaders from the West were attacking the gates of Jerusalem. Right? So the Crusaders from the West, obviously the Crusaders are? They're Christians. Right? So Christian soldiers are attacking Jerusalem city. And Jerusalem in 1099 is occupied by the Muslims. Right? So after 40 days of intense fighting, they finally breach the city walls. They enter the city and they do something very sad, something very barbaric, something very uncivilized. They break the rules of engagement for honorable warfare. So what the Crusaders do is that they kill the inhabitants of the city. They kill the soldiers that were fighting. They kill the soldiers that put down their weapons and surrendered. They were killing innocent women and children. They were entering mosques and desecrating the place. And they did something even worse than that, is that those few people that they allowed to survive, they forced them. Now, these people were picking up the dead bodies, the remains, the corpses of their neighbors, of their brothers, of their sisters, of their immediate family and people they know and love. They were taking them to mass graves and not even burying them, they were burning them. They were forced to do this by the Crusaders. And so they were kicked out of Jerusalem. This was in 1099. In 1187, there was a revolution in the Middle East under a very inspirational leader named, he was the Sultan of Turkey at the time, Sultan Nur al-Din. Sultan Nur al-Din, better known to the West as Saladin. Right? In 1187, he traveled throughout the Middle East, throughout the Persian Empire, and whoever didn't surrender to him, he defeated them. All Muslim tribes, right? And he was the ruler of the whole of the Middle East. Once he united all the tribes, all the Muslim tribes, those that didn't surrender to him, he defeated. No? And he was a fierce warrior. He was like a lion in battle. United all the Muslim tribes, and the next year they marched onto Jerusalem. And again, a great siege taken place. And in about 10 days, he broke through the walls of Jerusalem and he entered Jerusalem. And Sultan Nur al-Din, he did something very interesting. Now remember, not so long ago, a few generations back, what did they do to his people, his forefathers? Not did they just kill them, they were butchered, they were slaughtered, they were massacred, genocide took place. No? And so if that were to happen to your forefathers, that's something that you don't forget. It's passed down from one generation to the next. That bitterness and that hate stays with you in your heart. No? But Aladdin did something very different. The first thing he did was he instructed all of his soldiers to double their presence on all Christian holy places, churches basically, that nobody is allowed to desecrate any churches. Whoever, any of the Christian soldiers who surrender will be given free access out of Jerusalem. They will not be killed. No women and children were to be harmed. No? And so he got all the Christians together and told them, whenever you want to come back to pilgrimage into Jerusalem, you're welcome at any time. No? And then offered them safe journey of escort out of Jerusalem and onto the boats back to the countries that they were going from. And also, he took money out of his own armory. And he gave everybody money so that they had enough money for the journey back home and to have a start when they get back to wherever they're going to. No? So one of the reasons that Saladin was able to do this, because one, he's a very special personality. No? Now, was he a weak person? Was Saladin weak? He was not weak, no? He was fierce like a lion when he needed to be, no? But when he needed to be humble, he was able to be humble also, no? And so this is real strength, to know when to be strong and when to be humble. And humility is a great strength also. And he was able to do this because he had high levels of IQ. It takes so much of intelligence and cognitive ability to run an army and to successfully run an army. And he ran an empire, not just an army, right? It takes high IQ, high EQ, emotional intelligence, and high SQ, spiritual intelligence. And Saladin had all these qualities. Why? Because he was a spiritualist. No? He was a great Raja Rishi. No? So he was seeing through the eyes of compassion, friends and foes alike, no? Because he had stability of heart. He had peace within himself. Because he was a great warrior, but he was also a great spiritualist. He was a devoutly spiritual man, right? And so he had great humility. He was not seeing separately Muslims and Christians, no? He was seeing one family, the family of God, no? And when he needed to be humble, he was humble. When he needed to be strong, he was strong. No? And it said that one, humility is a great strength, right, which is taken for granted in this life. And the other thing about humility, real humility, it said that humility is not to think less of yourself, but to think of yourself less. Right? Does that make sense? Humility is not to think less of yourself, but to think of yourself less. Right? Which is something we will look at today also, which is a natural byproduct of somebody practicing a spiritual path. You know? I'd like to end this slide by a very famous quote. It says, "Man's goodness is like a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished." You know? And so this goodness that's coming from within us, you know? This goodness that defines humanity, this goodness is coming from the source of the soul. No? That is the source of all our goodness. No? That is the source of how we animate the body, really. No? And so this goodness sometimes in certain people it's hidden, but it will never ever be extinguished. No? And spirituality offers you the ability to rekindle that goodness that is within you, that is hidden, that is dormant. No? And so for Saladin, his flame of goodness was blazing for the world to see. No? And so this is something that we can learn from him and try to follow in his footsteps by understanding IQ, EQ, and SQ, and by trying not to be an intelligent fool. No? So quick overview of what we'll discuss today. We'll look at IQ, EQ, and SQ. IQ, intellectual quotient. EQ is emotional quotient, and SQ is spiritual quotient. So I'll say spiritual quotient or spiritual intelligence, emotional quotient, emotional intelligence, fundamentally the same thing. Okay? Then a very important aspect of the Vedas, a very important aspect especially of Bhagavad Gita, will teach you how the mind functions, and will teach you how the intellect functions, and will teach you how you acquire knowledge through the senses via the medium of mind and intelligence. And so we'll look at that in a little detail today, a very brief overview. In psychology, we would call this neuropsychology, but they only coming to slight cognition of what's really happening now. Krishna spoke this knowledge 2 million years ago to Vivaswan, the sun god. He explains in chapter 4, text 2 of Bhagavad Gita. He says that, speaking to Arjuna, that both you and I and Vivaswan were present 2 million years ago when I spoke this knowledge of the Gita. No? I remember it, but you have forgotten. No? This is our conditioned nature, no? That we forget things. No? And so out of his great mercy, how many years ago did Krishna speak Bhagavad Gita again to Arjuna? 5,000, roughly 5,000 years ago, no? And before that, he's saying 2 million years ago, I spoke to both you, Arjuna, and Vivaswan, no? So we know all this knowledge from when? From time immemorial, actually, no? Because this knowledge is eternal. At no time does it come into being, and at no time does it not exist, no? It's forever for us to imbibe it, to grasp it, no? So we'll look at this, how truly beautiful the Bhagavad Gita is, and how it is the greatest of greatest philosophies, no? And how nothing in the West compares to it. No? I had the honor and privilege to study philosophy when I was in university, and we'll show one philosopher who's a genius, and we'll see where he slightly went off, no? But how Bhagavad Gita is just perfect and complete. No? We'll look at knowledge and wisdom and the difference between knowledge and wisdom. And finally, we'll end in what is a real superhero, right? Everybody knows what a superhero is, right? We'll look at what is a real superhero, okay? Everybody happy so far? Good? Okay. So we'll commence with IQ, right? So if I had to ask, what is a definition, according to your understanding, what is a definition of IQ? What does it mean to you? What would you say? Logically solving something. What else? You'd like to try, Omkar? Okay. So in psychology, we use IQ to measure intelligence relative to the population sample. So basically, it's a measure of intelligence based in the culture that you're situated in. It's a relative measure of intelligence. It is also a very limited measure of intelligence. It is also a very obsolete way of measuring intelligence because it only takes into consideration book knowledge. It takes into consideration basically taking in knowledge and spewing it out, a regurgitation, a memory, right? So it's a very limited means of understanding somebody's intellect, right? So IQ is all about rationale, how the brain functions cognitively, and it is not a good means of measuring intellect. Right? Because it only deals with book knowledge. It only deals with analytical, rational, scientific sort of knowledge. Right? So we're going to look at people with high levels of IQ. Right? a selfie stick, right? Everybody knows what a selfie stick is, right? Now, who is the inventor of the selfie stick? Anybody knows? The inventor of the selfie stick is a Canadian named Wayne Frum, and he invented the selfie stick in 2005. Now, if I have to ask, does it take intelligence to develop the selfie stick, to come up with the idea of the selfie stick? Yes? Who says yes, it takes intelligence to come up with the idea of the selfie stick? Please raise your hand. Who says no, it doesn't require any intelligence to develop the idea of the selfie stick? Please raise your hands. So we all agree it requires intelligence, right? But if you look at the selfie stick and what it's used for, no? What generally do we do with the selfie stick? Take selfies, generally mundane selfies, right? So it's not about uplifting of consciousness. It's not about elevation of intellect. It's not about inspiring humanity to get out of this turmoil and anxiety that exists within material realm, no? What it leads to is selfishness, no? Generally, no? And so this is the hallmark of today's culture, no? And remember, what is culture? What is culture? That's the environment which you live in, but culture is the lens by which you perceive your environment. It is the way you see reality, you know? If your glasses are tinted black, then you'll see everything black. If your glasses are tinted orange, then you see everything orange, no? So culture is the lens by which you see your environment, no? Which is very important. We discussed it yesterday, it'll be a common theme today also, no? So it's said that in a civilized culture, right? In a civilized culture, we use things and we cherish people, right? In a civilized culture, you use things and you cherish people, right? In today's 21st century, in today's modern society, what are we doing? We use people to cherish things or to get things, no? Because we're a backward culture. We're a garbage culture. No? Because we're a selfish culture, concerned with the selfie stick. No? So it took genius to invent the selfie stick, but what is it leading to? No? It's leading to more garbage culture, zombie nation, no? Parasites and viruses, no? Selfishness. No? So that would be an example of an intelligent fool. Intelligence is there, but what are we using for our intelligence for? No? Can I give another example of an intelligent fool? That's okay? So what is that? Atom bomb, right? Who invented the atom bomb? Oppenheimer, right? Oppenheimer invented the atom bomb, called the Manhattan Project. Interesting thing, when they interviewed him, a very famous quote Oppenheimer quoted when he realized the destruction of his invention. Anybody remember the quote that he quotes? Now I have become death, destroyer of worlds. Where's he quoting from? He's quoting Bhagavad Gita, no? Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, entitled The Universal Form, where Krishna reveals his universal form, and text 32, no? Krishna says, time I am, destroyer of worlds, no? So, genius, even reading the Bhagavad Gita, no? But what did he do with his genius, no? He created the atom bomb, no? I'll give one more example of an intelligent fool in a mundane perspective, and then towards the end of the class, I'm going to give an example of an intelligent fool from the Vedas, right? So I want you to think of an intelligent fool from the Vedas, right? A villain, right? And so think about that when we get to that section of the class, I'm going to ask, right? But here's another clue as to an intelligent fool. Who is that? AK-47 is there. Everybody knows AK-47, no?
That's his name actually, AK.
Kalashnikov, Mikhail Kalashnikov, right? The AK-47, no? Gas-operated rifle, rotating bolt. It never jams. 600 rounds per second, and 600 rounds per minute. Never overheats. Can fire underwater. Can fire in desert 45-degree temperature. It has killed more people in urban warfare than any other weapon, excluding ballistic missiles and atomic bombs and things like that. No? It's so easy to use that even a child can use it. No? And in Africa, that's what's happening. That child militias are given, at the age of 12, given AK-47s and going out to kill people. No? This is what the world has come to. No? So it's that gun you use when you have to kill everybody in the room. That's the gun you will use. No? And so the inventor of the gun, Mr. Kalashnikov, Soviet by birth, born to a very poor peasant family. His father and mother were potato farmers. And growing up, he was extremely poor. And he went to primary school, and then he went to high school, and pretty much he went to university because his parents saved up the money their whole life just so he could go to university. No? And so he qualified as an engineer. And what he wanted to do was, because his parents were farmers, his dream was to create farming machinery that will help feed the Russian people. No? So he wanted to mechanize the farming process. But when he got out of university, he was a brilliant mind. He was taken into the Soviet army by whoever was in charge then, and this is what he came up with. No? And so on his deathbed, he was interviewed by the Soviet national television, because he's a hero in the Soviet Union, even to this day. No? On his deathbed, the Soviet television camera crew comes in and they ask him, you're about to die, but comrade, you're going to die as a hero for Mother Russia. How do you feel? And he was generally, on your deathbed, you don't lie. You tell it as it is. And he tells them very openly and honestly that I have the greatest regret for having created this abomination, he says, because my legacy is one of death and destruction. How many people have been killed because of this gun? How many people have been maimed? How many families have been torn apart because of this? My dream, my goal was to make farming machinery, to feed the people of Mother Russia, not to tear them apart by the seams. And so that was his realization at the time of death. So great intelligence, but with great intelligence comes great responsibility. And so another example of an intelligent fool. So much cognitive ability was given, but lacking EQ and SQ especially. So that's the last of our intelligent fools, except for the last one that we're going to show at the end of the slide. But remember, you all have to think about who that is. Who is this intelligent fool from our scriptures? And we all know him, right? Plus, there's many intelligent fools in our scriptures, who know more and more but less and less, who take power from God, usurp his power and try to use it for themselves. Try to rule the world like that. Become a parasite, a virus. Right? Moving on to EQ or EI, which is emotional intelligence. Right? So if I had to ask, what do you understand by emotional intelligence? What is emotional intelligence? Now there's lots of clues right in front of you. Can anybody say?
Looking at the world through compassion.
Through compassion. Looking at the world through compassion, no? So if I had to ask, what is the difference between being sympathetic and being empathetic? What is the difference between sympathy and empathy?
Sympathy is to understand what someone is going through, and empathy is to actually feel what they're going through.
So Trisha says sympathy is to?
It's
To
to understand,
understand.
know
Okay.
what someone is emotionally
Mhm.
going through, and empathy is to actually feel how they feel what they're going through.
Sure. So sympathy is to, oh, I feel very sorry for you, and so my heart bleeds for you, but that's enough now, right? But empathy is to walk in somebody's shoes, no? To feel what they're feeling, to experience their pain. In Sanskrit, we call this a para dukkha dukhi. No, this is a very important teaching of Bhagavad Gita, that for a saint, for a spiritualist, your pain is my pain, your suffering is my suffering. No? Apara dukkha dukhi. This is empathy. No? So people with high levels of EI, emotional intelligence, they see the world through the eyes of empathy. No? It's about understanding their feelings. It's about understanding other people's feelings. It's about understanding how your feelings affect you, affect your intelligence, affect how you see the world, how your emotions affect other people, how your anger affects other people, how your happiness affects other people, how their emotions affect you. So it's about being very sensitive to your needs and very sensitive to the external needs of people around you. No? And it's about communicating emotions in a healthy way, not suppressing them and giving voice to your emotions. No? It's about feeling the feels, right? And it's about being compassionate to the world, no? And not just compassion for ourselves. No? It's said that there's two types of people in this world. No? There are the givers and there are the takers, right? Two types of people, the givers and the takers. Right? And it said that the takers eat well, right? And the givers sleep well, right? Now, of these two types, which are the ones with high levels of emotional intelligence? The givers or the takers? The givers. No? This is emotional intelligence because we see the world not as it is, we see the world as we are, right? For it is the eye behind the eye that does the seeing, right? This is a very important concept to understand empathy. We see the world not as it is, we see the world how? As we are. Remember our culture. Our culture is the lens by which we see reality. So we see the world not as it is, we see the world as we are, no? For it is the eye behind the eye that does the seeing. Does that make sense? The eye behind the eye? The eye behind the eye that does the seeing, no? What does that mean, the eye behind the eye that does the seeing?
How we see.
Who is we? The soul, right? But also, more for us, because we're not so much in contact with ourselves, no? We try to become friends with our real self, no? To rediscover it. It's the mind and intelligence, no? Which is something we'll look at today also. But very important to understand is that saying, we see the world not as it is, but we see the world as we are because of our culture, right? Because of how we see things. And it is the eye behind the eye that does the seeing, no? And we'll look at that in some detail in a short while. In order to fully understand emotional intelligence, I find that it helps to tell stories, no? So I'm going to tell a story about somebody I think I kind of know. It's a story about myself. No? It's a story about what I have become. No? So this happened about some 4 or 6 years ago. I don't know 100%. I'm not getting any younger, you know. As you get older, I even forgot what I had for breakfast this morning. You know, it doesn't help to get older. So about 4 or 6 years ago, I was living in a temple in Durban, South Africa. It's called the Hare Krishna Temple of Understanding. And every Sunday, we would go out on what is called a book distribution, where the whole congregation comes together. And you're looking at like 500 people. We'll all have breakfast. We'll get a bag of Bhagavad Gitas, and we'll be dropped off in different places in the city. And then for about 4 hours or so, we go out begging people to take to spirituality. You know? Begging to take. You know? Not that we're taking anything from them, we're begging them to take from us. You know? So that morning we all get together at about 9 o'clock and we take breakfast. No? So generally breakfast at the temple in Durban is it's a Western breakfast. No? So you're getting like, you'll get oats, you'll get a muffin, you'll get pancakes, things like that. No? Sweet stuff. But that morning, for some reason, they decided to make khichdi, right? So obviously, everybody knows what khichdi is here, right? So at that time, khichdi was not my favorite thing, you know? And also, it was breakfast, and I'm not accustomed to eating curry for breakfast, you know? So anyway, I go there, I'm very hungry, and then I see they serving khichdi, and then I get a little moody, you know? You know, it's breakfast, it's 9 o'clock, why am I eating curry so early in the morning, you know? So I take the khichdi, I sit down, and then because I grew up in the West, I can't eat spicy food much, you know? And this khichdi was so hot that my tongue was on fire, you know? So I was turning red and like steam was coming out of my ears. That's how hot this khichdi was, you know? But everybody around me is happy, they're enjoying it, but I'm angry now, you know? So I'm eating this thing, but I'm not in a good mood, you know, because it's burning my tongue and it's burning my mind and it's burning my belly, you know? So anyway, I eat it because I'm hungry, take my books, I'm very moody, get into the car. I was driving some of the boys that were staying there, so we go to our spot, and it was a rainy day, so I told him, you know, stay nearby, because, you know, we may have to run back to the car quickly, so we all disperse, and I go out, and so we start walking in the street to distribute Bhagavad Gita, right? And so as I'm walking, see, I haven't left that experience behind. It's still within me, it's still in my heart, no? Because my belly's still burning, no? And I'm thinking, what is wrong with the cook, you know? How can they serve khichdi early in the morning, and it's so spicy? Why do they have to put so much of chili, you know? And so as I'm thinking this, I get this smell, you know, like, you know, the smell of sulfur, like rotten eggs, you know, this very strong smell. And so I'm in this like industrial area, and so there's lots of factories and businessmen there, because they have the money, you know, so they'll kind of buy lots of books, hopefully, if we go to them, right? So I was about to knock on somebody's door when I got the smell. No, it hits you in the face. And so I was wondering, where's the smell coming from? I had no idea where the smell was coming from. And so I turned to the right, and I saw something very disturbing. The smell was coming from, in South Africa, we have these very big green bins. They're almost the size of my height, no? So I'm like 1.79, the bins are like 1.6 meters, no? And so that bin was open, and there was this little boy who was halfway in the bin. So it means he was into the bin up to here, and he was like hanging into the bin, and that was the smell I was getting, no? And so he comes out of the bin, and I look at him, and he must have been like, he couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old, no? And his shirt was torn, had like short pants, but it was torn also. He was like very scruffy looking, no? And he was so emaciated that I could see his ribs, no? I could see his ribs. And in his hand, he had an apple. But it was a half-eaten apple. And when you take a bite of an apple, you know, it sort of gets brown, no? And it had already become brown, no? And so I looked at him and he looked at me, no? And for like a moment, we shared that look, no? And I couldn't break my gaze for some reason. I couldn't take my gaze away from him. And so he broke his gaze first, and then he looks at the apple, and then he takes a bite of the apple. No? And then he looks at me and he smiles. I'll never forget that smile for as long as I live. And then he walks away. No? And then after seeing that, it affects you, because what I was thinking before, and then after seeing this, I couldn't go back and start knocking on that door to distribute the Bhagavad Gita, no? And so I started walking back to the car. It was starting to drizzle a little bit, so there was a wonderful excuse also. So I opened the car and I shut the doors, and as I shut the doors, it started to rain a little harder, no? And I was grateful for that, because as it started to rain harder, I started to cry, no? And it was a cry, a sob that you couldn't just control, no? It was metaphoric, like the rain was pouring down harder, and I started crying harder, no? And so I had two realizations, no? One was that I was not afraid to cry, no? I was not afraid to cry. I'm very in touch with my feminine side, no? And this is a strength also, no? So I was crying, and it was a healthy, holistic, cathartic experience, no? The second realization that I had, my first realization was I was not afraid to cry. My second realization was I realized what I was afraid of. I was afraid of what have I become, no? I've become a monster. I've become a demon, no? I mean, waking up early in the morning, meditating for 3.5 hours, reading Bhagavad Gita, following a spiritual path, but what had I become? No? Decent intellect, but empathy wasn't there. Emotional intelligence was gone out the window, no? Because why? I'm thinking aham mameti, I and mine. I'm the center of the universe, and everything is revolving around me, no? So I realized that I was lacking a balance, no? There was a disconnect between head and heart, no? Because knowledge was there, but it hadn't transformed into wisdom yet, no? Because sometimes you can be walking a spiritual path only externally, no? Like you could be fasting the whole day for Janmashtami, but your ego is feasting, thinking, what a great person I am. Everybody else is eating, but I'm fasting. No? Look how great I am. No? And that way, your external body is fasting, but your false ego is feasting. No? That's not real humility. No? That's not real empathy. No? That's not real love. No? So I was thinking, what have I become? No? And I need to change. I need to delve into our scriptures, practice spiritual life seriously, not just externally, no? And I needed to increase my empathy, no? Which is what we'll look at how to do in the next few slides. No? So the next slide that we're going to show is a short video clip, and it's about a very special person who has high levels of emotional intelligence, obviously high levels of IQ, but also high levels of SQ also. He's a devoutly spiritual person. And so after we play the video, I just like for you to take 10 seconds after the video and reflect on your life. Just for 10 seconds, and then we'll get into quick discussion about it.
I wasn't ready.
I have no arms and no legs, but I'm very thankful that I have my little chicken drumstick here. People freak out when they see me for the first time. It's so cool. I was at a water slide all by myself. Everyone obviously at the bottom of the slide is looking up and waiting for other people to come down, and here I come and they're freaking out. They're like, you know, like this. And I was so tempted to look at myself and go, what happened? You know? And there were times where I sort of looked at my life and thinking, well, I can't do this and I can't do that. And you keep on concentrating on the things that you wish you had or the things that you wish you didn't have. And you sort of forget what you do have. And there's no point, I believe, in my life where I wish I had arms and legs, I wish I had arms and legs, I wish I had arms and legs, because wishing won't help. But what I've seen in life are just a couple key principles, and the first thing that I've seen is to be thankful. It's hard to be thankful, man. I tell you, when I was 8 years old, I sort of summed up my life and thought, I'm never going to get married, I'm not going to have a job, I'm not going to have a life of purpose. What kind of a husband am I going to be if I can't even hold my wife's hand? It's a lie to think that you're not good enough. It's a lie to think that you're not worth anything. Oh boy. Woo! It's freezing, I can't feel my hands. I love life. You know, so many people come and say, how come you smile so much? And I'm like, well, it's a long story. But it's very simple at the same time. You see, it's very hard to smile sometimes in life. There are things that happen that you don't know and you don't understand, and you don't know if you're going to get through it. You know, you go through your storms in life and you don't know how long this storm's going to be. And today I want to share with you some principles that I've learned in my life that you can use in yours. Being patient is beautiful. I tell you, it's the hardest thing. But I realize I may not have hands to hold my wife's hand, but when the time comes, I'll be able to hold her heart. I don't need hands to hold her heart. You know, it is scary to know how many girls have eating disorders. It is scary to know how many people are just angry at life because of their situation at home and angry at others. It's scary to know how many people actually feel like they're worth nothing. Every single girl right here, right now, I want you to know that you are beautiful. You are gorgeous just the way you are. And you boys, you're the man. On this DVD, I share my experiences in life of how I've overcome challenges and seen a new, fresh perspective in life. To be thankful, to dream big, and to never give up. I speak to children, youth, and adults about key issues and principles that I've applied in my life that has given me the strength to conquer all that comes before me.
Make sense? Right? And so, obviously, very high levels of emotional intelligence, no? Because he's not living selfishly, no? He's not feeling sorry for himself. He's selfless, if anything, no? And so, we look at this and we can think, how much do we have to be grateful for that we take for granted, no? Every day is a blessing, a gift from God, no? But sometimes we can forget that, no? Every day is a miracle, no? But again, we forget that, no? And this again is a hallmark of emotional intelligence, is gratitude, no? Gratitude helps us see what is there instead of what isn't, no? But all too often in today's modern advanced civilization, it's all about comparison, you know? And I see in bits at the university that we teach in, no? That it's all about competitiveness, no? And the kids are put against each other, no? And it's like a survival of a fittest, and it's like a rat race, no? And they rise by pushing others down, no? And that's such a terrible way to live, no? So if we cultivate emotional intelligence, which is a natural byproduct of somebody practicing spirituality, no? Then this is how we live our life, with love and compassion and respect and kindness, not just for people that are my relatives, no? Not just for people that look like me, but for all of humanity, no? And not just humanity, for all sentient beings, for all animals, for all creatures, no? And this is love, and this is emotional intelligence, no? And gratitude, a hallmark of emotional intelligence, a hallmark of spirituality, no? So before we move on to SQ, I'd like to quickly look at the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? Between knowledge and wisdom, right? In order to understand this, what is the difference between knowledge and wisdom, we'll do so by giving an analogy, right? By asking a question. Is a tomato a fruit or a vegetable? Fruit? Vegetable? Who says vegetable? 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 Okay. Who says fruit? Fruit? Okay. So it's like this, right? For this analogy, we're going to go with a tomato is a fruit. Botanically, a tomato is a fruit, right? So knowledge is to know a tomato is a fruit, right? Knowledge is to know a tomato is a fruit, right? Wisdom is to not put a tomato in a fruit salad. So you see the difference? Knowledge is to know a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not to put the tomato in a fruit salad, no? So wisdom is realized knowledge. Wisdom has gone, knowledge is book knowledge. It's something in pages, it's something that's abstract to you. When knowledge from the book has become realized, it becomes alive to you, it becomes wisdom. It's lived knowledge, it's realized knowledge, you know? So that's what was happening to me. I was reading Bhagavad Gita, but it was entering through my ear and coming out through the other ear. It hadn't touched my heart yet. In order for it to be realized, in order for it to become wisdom, you have to live the philosophy, no? Bhagavad Gita teaches so many things, but until you apply it into your life, it'll always remain IQ. It'll never become a part of your life in terms of EQ. It'll never touch the heart, no? So that's the difference between knowledge and wisdom, no? Wisdom is realization, right? Which is, wisdom is the hallmark, is an essence of spiritual quotient, right? Which is what we're going to look at the final part of this class, is spiritual quotient. Very quickly we'll go over it because it's kind of very simple, but at the same time it's esoteric. And we'll end our class with understanding the difference between mind and intelligence, right? So everybody understand wisdom and knowledge, right? So SQ, spiritual intelligence, right? So what is spiritual intelligence? What is spiritual quotient? Okay, I'll tell you what it's not first. SQ is not necessarily something religious, no? SQ is about finding the meaning to your meaning, finding the meaning to your meaning of life, finding your purpose in your existence, no? It's about analyzing the world and seeing the world through a specific lens, through a specific culture, no? It's about a perceptual revolution, no? It's about more seeing through the eyes instead of, more seeing through the heart than the eyes, no? And it's about asking existential questions. Fundamentally about asking existential questions. And what is an existential question? What is the purpose of your life? Anything else? Why am I here? Anything else? Who am I? And so an existential question, it questions existence, right? All of these things that we asked, which is a hallmark of SQ, no? Spiritual quotient. And which is the hallmark of Bhagavad Gita. It is asking these existential questions, no? Who am I? Why am I suffering? Why is this happening to me? What is karma? What is material energy? What is spiritual energy? What is God, no? And fundamentally, Bhagavad Gita is giving you the psychology of who you are and the psychology of God also, no? So amazing, isn't it? And so it leads to a cognitive change, it leads to a behavioral change, and it leads to a change of paradigm. In psychology, we call this a zeitgeist. It's a change in your perception of how you see reality. A collective change of consciousness, a revolution. And so I'll give an example of an existential question. Right? Anybody knows this phrase, cognito ergo sum, by a French philosopher named Rene Descarte. Brilliant, genius. Right? I'm sure you have heard of this phrase. There's a clue. Anybody knows now? Cognito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. Right? He asked an existential question, who am I, what is the meaning of life, and came up with the answer that I think I'm a rational, human, functioning, sentient being, and because I think, therefore I am. Because I have rational cognition, it's a symptom that I exist. Right? So a genius, I think you'll agree. No? But what is wrong with the statement? I think, therefore I am. What is Bhagavad Gita teaching us? Right? It teaches, I am, therefore I think. No? And who am I? You're the soul. No? And because I am the soul, therefore I think, because the soul animates everything in the body. It animates the mind, intelligence, and false ego, and it animates the body. No? So Bhagavad Gita teaches, I am, therefore I think. He asked a perfect question, questioning existence. But he got an imperfect answer because it came from his own contaminated mind. He's not a pure, liberated soul, right? But Bhagavad Gita asks the perfect questions and answers with the perfect answers, no? With perfect spiritual answers. I am the soul, therefore I think, no? And you see what happens when the soul leaves the body. What happens to the body when the soul leaves the body? What happens when the soul leaves the body? The body is inanimate, no? Have you ever gone to a funeral and say the mother and father have lost a child, no? And they're crying, oh, my son is gone, my son is gone. But he's there, he's in the coffin, no? Who's there? Only the body is there, no? Even without any spiritual knowledge, we know he's left. What has left? Atma is gone, no? And without Atma, there's no animation of the body. There's no cognition. I am, therefore I think, no? Isn't that brilliant? And this is the starting blocks in Bhagavad Gita, no? And this is the beauty of Bhagavad Gita. Perfect, esoteric, knowledge from another realm, no? And so you understand Bhagavad Gita, you'll understand yourself, you'll understand the soul, Atma. You'll understand Bhagavan, the super soul. You'll understand Prakriti, material nature. You'll understand Kala, time. And you'll understand Karma, activity. And that covers everything in all of existence, no? Is there anything left out? Absolutely not. It's perfect and complete. The most perfect existential questions answered by the most perfect person in the most perfect and complete way. There is no room for error. Perfect. No? And so we're coming to the final part of our discourse, where we're going to, according to Bhagavad Gita, try to understand mind and intelligence, and then end with the epitome of the intelligent fool. The best of the intelligent fools. That's okay? Everybody still awake? Sort of? Okay. So this is a quote from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse number 6. For one who has conquered the mind is the best friend. But for one who has failed to do so, his very mind will be his greatest enemy. No? So the mind can make heaven out of hell and hell out of heaven. No? And so, in order to understand the mind and intelligence, we have to understand how it works. No? And by understanding this, we will understand the defect or the problem with being an intelligent fool. Right? So this is how the mind, the senses, and intelligence function. Right? How do we analyze the world? How do you know that the world exists? Through your eyes. What else? Through your knowledge acquiring senses, touch, feel, taste, hearing, eyes, right? So this is how it works, right? Your senses take in sensory information, sensory input, and put it into the mind, right? How do they do that? It's transmuted through the medium of language, right? Words have meaning, right? I'll give you a very quick example. When I was in university, in the West, when a boy speaks to girls, it's called, he's talking to the chicks, they would say, He's chatting up the birds, So when first years used to come to university, when the first years used to come, so they'll ask the senior boys, what are you studying? And so the senior boys will say, I'm studying ornithology. And so all the senior people would laugh. But the people who are coming for the first time, they have no idea what he's saying. They're just impressed. Oh, he's studying ornithology. He's going to be an ornithologist. But they have no idea what it means. So an ornithologist is somebody who studies birds. So basically, he's telling the first year boys that he's very expert at chatting to girls. He's an ornithologist. He's the best at speaking at speaking to girls. At speaking to the birds. So words have different meanings in different cultures, and for the first person that's coming there, that first year, he doesn't know what it means, so it means something different to him. So through the medium of language, he acquires knowledge via the senses, transmutes it, internalizes it through the medium of language, and in his mind, ornithologist means something. In our mind, ornithologist means something else. So you see how it's being internalized through the senses, then via the medium of language into the mind, right? Now once it goes into the mind, this is what the mind does. The mind takes that knowledge or that information, that sensory input through language, and it gives it to the intelligence, right? Now, the intelligence gives you various options. Now, the higher your level of intelligence, the more options you have. Like Einstein was a genius, he'll have billions of options to choose from. Somebody a little less intelligent will have fewer options, right? So you have all these options. And it's the duty of the mind, or the job of the mind, to select from these options. The more pure your mind, the more pure options you select from. The more dirty and corrupted and perverted your mind, it'll select dirty options. So Hitler was a genius. What did his mind choose? Sinful options. Very intelligent ways how to commit genocide and kill a whole race of people. So polluted mind takes from polluted options, and then again, the mind causes you to act through the senses, right? So that's how intelligence, mind, senses work, right? Makes sense to everybody, right? And so that's the problem with intelligent fools. They have a polluted mind, and because of that, they have great intellect, high levels of IQ, but because of the polluted mind, they engage in nefarious activities. They do evil things. So they may be geniuses, but these geniuses are abusing themselves and other people's because of polluted minds. Does that make sense to everybody? And so one last point I'd like to make about mind and intelligence. Sometimes they have a battle within yourself, It's said that you have a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other shoulder, So it's like this. Your intelligence is much more intelligent than the mind, So sometimes maybe have you climbed up a very high building, and if you climb up the stairs and you look over the building, maybe you've had this experience that you hear this voice in your mind saying jump. Has it ever happened to you? Go to a high building and something in your mind says jump. Have you had that experience? You've had that experience? And did you jump? Why not? Because it's going to hurt you, right? So the mind is telling you to jump because it's a rascal, but the intelligence will tell you, no, hold on, don't do that. This may be a bad idea, I'll give you another example, right? A few months ago, like 6 or 8 months ago, I was living in our temple in Vasco, right? So it's a bungalow-style temple. So on the 4th floor is where I stay with the rest of the boys there. And so I was late for a program. The transport had already come. So I run down 4 flights of stairs. And I get into the car and I realize, 1, I'm 5 minutes late, but 2, I left my laptop on the 4th floor. So I run back up, no? Get to the 4th floor, get my laptop, and coming down, on the 3rd floor, I get into traffic. There's this very old couple, and they don't speak English, and I think they were deaf a little bit, no? So they're holding hands and they're walking down the stair very slowly, and they must have been like maybe 80, right? And they're taking their time, and I'm panicking, you know, I have to go, but I can't get around, you know? And they're not listening because they may be deaf. And so what does the mind say? Kick them. Kick them. Kick them. The mind is saying kick them, right? And do I kick them? No, you can't kick them, no. Your intelligence says, you moron, you can't kick them. No, you don't kick them, you don't do that, right? So that's the conflict we have within the mind and intelligence, no? But somebody with a more polluted mind may kick them, no? It's a possibility, right? An intelligent fool, no? So we understand it? So spirituality offers you the opportunity to purify the mind, no? And a purified mind will take from wholesome experiences. And so we're going to end on this point is, remember I asked you to think about an intelligent fool from our Shastra, from our scriptures, no? Can anybody give an example of an intelligent fool who knew more and more but less and less? Ravana, no? The epitome of an intelligent fool, right? Now, was Ravana intelligent? Was Ravana intelligent? He's genius, right? I mean, he had 10 heads, no? And so he is the best example of an intelligent fool. He knew the Vedas so well, right, that the demigods and the devatas invited him to Swarga Loka to perform the fire sacrifice because he knew the Vedas according to rhyme and meter and everything perfectly, externally, right? And so as he was performing the fire yagya, he did it so well that when he offered the last oblations, Agni Dev himself came to accept the offerings, right? And Agni Dev doesn't come alone, no? The energy is always with the energetic. The energy is always with the energetic, no? Shakti and Shaktiman, no? So who did Agni Dev come with? Who is Agni Dev's consort? Agni Dev came with Swaha. Makes sense, Swaha, right? Agni Dev came with Swaha. And when he came with his most beautiful consort, Swaha, what happened to Ravana? He fell into lust, no? Knows so much but can't control his senses, no? More and more but less and less, no? And he steals Swaha for himself, no? Consumed by lust, no? Has the most beautiful wife. What's Ravana's wife's name? Mandodari. Chaste and beautiful, no? He sees Mother Sita, what does he want? He wants to enjoy Mother Sita, no? The consort of Lord Ram, no? He has everything. He has a kingdom of gold. Still he wants more, no? He wanted to rape Satyavati, no? And she cursed him, no? That anytime you ever enjoy a woman without a consent, that day you will die, and it'll be the end of your whole dynasty also, no? And she was actually the end of Ravana's whole dynasty, and that is one of the reasons why he didn't try to rape Mother Sita, no? He gave Mother Sita 1 year, and at the end of 1 year, if you don't submit to me, I'll eat you. That's what he told her, no? He's a Rakshasha, no? But intelligent fool, no? Knowing more and more but less and less, but his mind was polluted. Because why? He was following the Vedas externally. He was following it to gain power separately from God and use it, usurp God's power, no? So like that, we should be careful not to be intelligent fools, no? And our last slide that we'll look at today is, who are real superheroes, no? Now externally, he's like a superhero, is he not? So much of power he has, no? But an intelligent fool, because his mind is polluted and corrupted. Very low, if any, SQ and EI, no? Superhero, no? But who is a real superhero, no? It's a fair question to ask, no? So I submit to all of you that all of you here are real superheroes, no? You may not have superpowers like, what's Iron Man's superpower? He's very intelligent, right? Also, he's very rich. Fundamentally, that's his superpower. He has a very expensive suit, right? We don't have to be superheroes like that. Real superheroes are those that have come to a discourse like this, that are asking existential questions. Who am I? Where do I go when I die? What is the purpose of life? How do I give meaning to life? These are existential questions, esoteric questions. These are real supermen and superwoman questions, no? And if you look at the world, how many people are asking these questions? And of these people asking these questions, how many people are getting perfect and pure knowledge, no? And real superheroes are people like you, are people like Hanuman, are people like Narad Muni, no? Who are going out and living a life of character and uprightness, are living according to the scripture, are living by the word of God. They're living the word of God because they're walking in the footsteps of God, no? Hanuman and Narad Muni, self-controlled, no? Not chasing mad after money and woman and fame and fortune separately from God. Not that those things are bad, no? But those things have the potential to abuse us. So we use them and don't let them use us, no? And so self-controlled, so sensitive to the needs of other people, no? So loving and compassionate and tolerant. And true love is to give knowledge of the soul, which is what they're all doing. No, Narad Muni he's a real superhero in one sense. He's a spaceman, no? Traveling through time and space. And all his chanting is Narayana, Narayana, no? Speaking the glories not of himself, but of God, no? A secret to real happiness. That's why he's happy all the time, no? So, these are real superheroes. All of y'all and all of them, no? And this is our last slide that we will have for today, is that if your only profit in this life is money, then your success is a failure. Because there's more to life than just debt and taxes, no? And we see in this material life that in this material life, you rise by pushing people down, no? But in spiritual life, you rise by lifting people up, no? And we'll end on this point, is that this is how you cultivate not just high IQ, EQ, but also high SQ, by one, reading the great text like Bhagavad Gita, and following a sadhana. A sadhana is a regulated spiritual practice, which will purify the mind, will enhance the intelligence, and it'll offer you to give something to yourself, to really get to know who you really are, and to really understand everybody else also. And then we all are teachers in this world, no? We all one day will have families, no? And we all can be an inspiration to the world. And when you have your family, what are you going to give them, no? Are you going to just be an intelligent fool? Or will you give them love and compassion and understanding, and give them the potential to ask existential questions, and to ask perfect questions, and to get the perfect answers through timeless wisdom? And not just knowledge, wisdom. Then we'll understand the difference between a tomato and not putting it into a fruit salad, no? And so we'll end on that point, is that this is what real wealth is. Real wealth are those things you have in your life that money can't buy. And real wealth affords you the wisdom and knowledge to become a gentleman and to become a lady, to be self-controlled, chaste, honest, virtuous, and to realize who you truly are. Because one, you're a human, you're a spiritual being having a human experience. You're not a human being having a spiritual experience. And it is the I, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. For it is the I behind the I that does the seeing. Make sense? So we'll stop the class there for today. Quick overview of what we've discussed. IQ, EQ, SQ. Function of the mind and intelligence. Real intelligence. Knowledge versus wisdom, and real superheroes, no? And quick insights from what we can take today, we call it insightful insights. Humility is not about thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. No? It's about diminishing the false ego of who you think you falsely are. No? Intelligent fools know more and more, but less and less. No? But their consciousness still remains impure. A civilized society uses things and cherishes people. No? That's correct? A civilized society uses things and cherishes people. Not that we use people and cherish things. No? Empathy is to walk in another's shoes. Gratitude helps us see what is there instead of what isn't. No? So to be grateful for what we have. And very important, we see the world as we are and not as it is. And finally, I am, therefore I think. I am a spirit soul with form and personality, and therefore I think, not the other way around, right? Because why? The soul is the source of everything. No? So I'd like to stop there for today and thank everybody for attending our discourse today. I'm very grateful to all of you all. And remember, without you all, this wouldn't be possible. No? So thank you very much for taking the time and making the time to come for this session.